We have Jim Cherubini and Mike. Mike's from RGF, and Jim, you're from Northway.
Yeah, we're actually, we're both from Northway. We're your manufacturer's rep for RGF Environmental. What we're going to do today is we are going to cover the basics of RGF, the REMI Halo, briefly touch on the SARS-CoV-2 study. I'm going to handle the light commercial and the residential products, and then I turn it over to Mike to break it up for biocontrols and also commercial. In the first part, I'm going to mute all you guys for background noise. If you have questions, please feel free to utilize the chat feature of this Zoom call. And with that, let's get started. All right, so if you bear with me here, so I hit the right button. Okay, so what we're going to do today is from a contracting, mechanical contractor standpoint, and also this applies to wholesale distribution. We're going to go over really how to make money, how to increase your average order, how to increase your profit, and really the benefits of clean air for the homeowner. And let's see, next slide. All right. So this is RGF Environmental. They're based, this is a United States manufacturing company. They're based out of Riviera Beach, Florida. And I've been to this facility myself personally. It's like visiting the Google of indoor air quality. It's a huge manufacturing facility. They've been in business for over 30 years. This is also where they have their research and development. And they do a lot more than indoor air quality. They do food, they do water, they do oil, I believe oil separation as well. So they're a massive, massive company. This right here, I like to show this slide to kind of give you a feel for the factory floor and the company that you're dealing with. You can, as they say, almost eat off the floor, if you will. And they're also as much really a promotional and a marketing company, in my opinion, as well, which is, again, very important for indoor air quality because it's something that I found can be, up until now, tough to visualize and tough to sell. So they do things, for instance, like the Lamborghini, or right here, the Germinator. Reason they do this is to promote the product, package the product, and sell it to your customers, make it easier to sell for you. This is important before I really dive into the technical aspect of it, is online sales are prohibited. You have to be an authorized RGF distributor to do online sales. Does that mean that you're never going to see our products online? No, it's impossible to police 100%. Bottom line is that the policy is 0 online sales are tolerated. And if you do somehow, some way wind up purchasing something online, that's an RGF product, there's absolutely no warranty. A really bad idea with an electronic product. So the bottom line is what RGF does is health, comfort, cleanliness, mold, bacteria, odors, and more. So these are the features and the benefits that we're giving to the homeowner, to businesses. We work really in these 3 areas. We're going to focus on air today, but RGF also does water and food purification. You're going to find you can comfortably walk into any application, whether it be industrial, commercial, residential. This includes military contracts that we've done via RGF, food processing facilities, and also zoology applications as well. So this is a question that we put in here for contractors as manufacturers rep, is really up until now. A lot of people didn't talk about indoor air quality until COVID. And reason being is, well, why? So we found that a lot of people, there's a lot of products out there. It'll make your head spin of how many claims, how many different products are available. And we find that people oftentimes aren't trained on the product as a person that is a sales professional, I find that you don't take out of the bag what you don't know. You don't want to look foolish. So that's why we do these trainings. We find that sometimes people don't know how to sell it on the feature benefit side. And more importantly, the bottom line, they don't realize how profitable it can be. I know you can get sometimes very focused on selling the job, selling the equipment, and not the things that are ancillary or around it. So how do we fix that? Why do we do these trainings? What we do is we offer market-leading indoor air quality products, trained distributor, and also mechanical contractor salespeople. We've done many of these trainings. Train the installers on the product, and also really go down the line and show people how to grow into profitable private label dealers, a program that I'll show you here in a little bit. Again, before I get into the product side of it, something that IAQ or in the IAQ market that can be difficult is selling it, is visualizing it. So we like to rely on these key alliances from anyone from Disney on down to Marriott to McDonald's to GE, Chipotle that have our products. An example is Chipotle. Before their, if you will, health scare back in the day, after that, they consulted RGF and put in our ice machine and 3 Remy Halos in each one of their food prep areas, their general service area, and also the restrooms. Red Lobster is another example of a key alliance that I like to reference. They use our technology, especially on the ice machine side of things. So if you call on any restaurants and you service and or sell ice machines, you know these things can get pretty grimy, pretty nasty. So when the restaurant business comes back around, or if you, like for instance, right now, restaurants are struggling to find a solution, this is going to provide a solution for them. So again, this is so important, going back to validation, anything from 32 active patents. We have hundreds of products available. We're going to focus primarily on the Halo today, given that's what Holman supplies. Holman's Associates rather stocks. We've been around in the market for many years, late 80s, early 90s, and over 3 million products installed into the market. So I'm going to hop right into it, into IAQ 101 very briefly. It's really 3 things that are out there on the basic side of it. The first is what everyone is talking about right now, especially with SARS-CoV-2, is microbes. These are the things that unfortunately will harm your health. Bacteria, viruses, mold spores, single cell organisms, MRSA, flu, E. coli, strep, and staph. We have testing, and I'll show that testing data that it kills these items and goes after them, including H1N1. And also we have testing data on COVID, 99.9% inactivization of that virus in a real world environment. So number two of 3, IAQ 101, is gases, VOCs, volatile organic compounds. These are the things that cause your odors. So my favorite analogy is, for instance, sports gear or hockey gear that your kids leave in the mudroom if you live in New England. That's the result of those VOCs and the odors from the hockey gear. A really good example in HVAC is the off-gassing from new products. The perfect example of this is new construction. We work in HVAC in the home, so that new carpet smell, that new vinyl smell, that new construction smell, it smells great, but it's not good for you. It contains elements like methyl ethyl ketone or carcinogens. This technology is going to knock that down and make your home a more safe environment, especially given how much we're quarantining and spending time inside. The last 3 of 3 is particulates. This is dust, standard, pollen. When I used to do these presentations and trainings in person, I would typically poll the room and ask people, all right, how many of you have allergies? I would say at least sometimes 30% of the people would raise their hand, sometimes 50 in the room. So this is a way to address that. So this is something good to remember as you sell indoor air quality products. It is typically one or almost always one of these 3, being microbes, gases, or particulates. So this comes up a lot is, when should you quote it? When should you quote indoor air quality to a customer? It's really anytime you sell an air conditioning system or a heating HVAC system. It's equivalent to any type of brand name ductless job, high SEER unitary jobs. We have units that work, plug-in standalone units that do work in conjunction with baseboard radiant if you don't have a forced air system. Anytime that you're in that situation, it's always best to offer the product, and we have a solution for that. So again, back to basics, just like the IAQ 101, this is something that I like a lot. It's really one of two ways in the IAQ world right now. Systems are one of two ways. They're either active or they're passive. They're either active or they're passive. Passive systems treat only at the product location. They rely on the circulation of viruses, gases, all those 101 factors that I talked about to be circulated by the machine. That's their mechanism of action, their MOA. An active system is going to treat all of the air in the space. It's going to actively pump out, if you will, a mechanism of action into the occupied space and treat it at the source. It doesn't rely on any one of those three things from our 101 slide to be circulated by the system. So an example of this, everybody knows UV. So we do sell UV, but this is not our main mechanism of action. That's a really common question that I get is, hey, can you quote me some of those Remy Halo UV lights? They're a lot more than UV lights, and I'll show you why. UV is a good technology. It's been out for years. It's effective, but at the end of the day, it really is a passive system. It's installed around the coil and great for coil maintenance, but it relies on the distance of what you're trying to kill and also the speed by which whatever you're trying to kill is moving by the UV light. So you can see my mouse here. If it's close to the UV, it's virtually 100% effective. And if it's moving slow, your sterilization time required is very low, thus it's very effective. But as you can see from here, here's your UV. It's on a coil. It's on a coil that we're all familiar with. You can see the mold growth and the bacteria. Again, nothing wrong with UV. It's been out for years. It's very effective, but it's a passive indoor air quality system. This is going to be equivalent to, I like to use the analogy of a sunburn or a farmer's tan. Same exact thing. Better that you're going to see out there, this is something that you see a little bit. It's called PCO. This is photocatalytic oxidation. This is going to be kind of analogous to your bug zapper. This again is a passive system, PCO. It has to hit the surface of the device, the virus and or whatever you're trying to kill has to hit the surface of this device. It's a non-patentable process. It's made with UV lights that are truly a commodity. And again, going back to the bug zapper analogy, your house, for instance, is the screened-in porch. It's only going to kill 99% of the bugs that come into contact with the bug zapper. This is going to be the same thing with PCO. We kind of move up the food chain. Again, there's nothing wrong with any of this technology. We utilize all of it. This is going to be an ionizer, what some people call bipolar cold plasma ionization. This is essentially putting out positive and negative electrons that go in the air. This is a form of proactive air purification. This increases existing filtration by a method which people refer to as agglomeration. The electrons agglomerate or glob onto, if you will, layman's terms, onto dust particles, thereby increasing the size and glomming them together and allowing your filter to be more effective. Again, this is non-patented technology. It's been in use since the 1950s, and we sell them. We sell them at a very competitive price. We sell them for duct-mounted units, and we also sell them for ductless mini splits. So you can see right here, this is going to be your EVAP. Everyone knows this. This would be for instance, a Holman's Mitsubishi evaporator hung on the wall. Clear Sky is going to be a self-cleaning ionizer. that we provide, and this mounts to the very top of the evaporator head. So what you're doing is really twofold here. You are cleaning the evaporator core of viruses, mold, especially mold, because that can tend to group on. But you're also on the downstream side, you're cleaning the air proactively as it goes out into the occupied space. So the ions are distributed through the evaporator core and then also into the occupied space. So now we move, we're almost at kind of the pinnacle of the food chain, in our opinion, here for IAQ. We move on to the PHI cell, which stands for photohydroionization. And this is truly a form of proactive air purification. Again, PHI, photohydroionization. The way this works, I love to talk about how things work. I love to take things apart. It's always been a hobby of mine. The way it works is you have a broad spectrum light that reacts with metals, and it creates hydroperoxides, low levels part per million of H2O2, hydrogen peroxide, that goes in the air. And this is very effective at destroying your microbials, your bacteria, your viruses, your mold spores, and knocking down your odors and your VOCs, VOC standing for volatile organic compounds. This goes after, this is especially relevant in this day and age, your surface and airborne contaminants. And it's also available with a quick release cell replacement. So it is very easy to change out. So this is kind of where I pump the brakes a little bit. This is kind of where I throttle it back. And always remember the first time I saw any of this technology. This, to make it put very, very simply, to communicate this very simply, this PHI, photohydroionization, is a naturally occurring thing, if you will, in the atmosphere. Outside air naturally produces H2O2, natural hydrogen peroxide. It's created, as you can see here, by the reaction of air, moisture, sun, and metals in the atmosphere. If you throttle it back a little bit even further, the air we breathe is really a soup. It's a lot more than air. The air we breathe is 20.9% oxygen. It contains nitrogen, and it also contains other metallic elements that are in the air. The sun is reacting with those elements in the air and naturally creating this process, naturally creating photohydroionization. What RGF does, the REME halo, REME, reflective electromagnetic energy, what it's doing is, instead of using the sun, it uses UV or an LED bulb as the broad spectrum catalyst. Instead of just relying on the air itself, it uses a shroud, which is the catalyst as well, that reacts with the bulb. And that's how it creates this already naturally occurring process or mechanism of action in the atmosphere. So the biggest, one of the number one questions when I do these presentations is, if you're like me, you want to know how does it work? Because indoor air quality, you can't see it working in the air. So it's interesting to me to know that it occurs naturally in the atmosphere. Number two, the other question is, does it work? Yes, it does work. And we'll show you the studies, and it works naturally in our atmosphere as well. So this is kind of fun. You know, what is in that brown bottle? We put this in here as an example of really something that you see every day to really drive it home. H2O2, hydrogen peroxide, 2 parts hydrogen, 2 parts oxygen. Used in many household items, anything from teeth whitening all the way on down to the coil cleaners, now hydrogen peroxide that we see in our HVAC industry. And then kind of moving on to the final event here on the light commercial and residential side. So you've probably noticed that a good salesperson will never knock another competitor's technology. And another reason for that is that all of the technology that I mentioned is incorporated into one machine, one device, if you will. And that's the REME halo. All the technology in IAQ that we know today, or the best forms of technology, in our opinion, are incorporated into this one machine. You have UV at the center of the unit. It's a UV catalyst, We don't rely on UV as the primary mechanism of action. You may get some ancillary benefits from that, but we really rely on the UV to react with the shroud and create the process of photohydroionization. Number two is we have, as I hope you can see my mouse right here, we have not one but two bipolar cold plasma ionizers. Again, this is a form of positive and negative ions that are created via this machine that really help knock down dust, particulates, VOCs, and this is in addition to photocatalytic oxidation and finally PHI, the primary mechanism of action of the REMI halo that you have here. So again, just to recap, all of these technologies are incorporated into our machine, both on the commercial, light commercial, and residential. Again, to recap, this is a proactive form of air purification and ionization. We incorporate broad spectrum light. This is going to react with the metals and also the moisture that is naturally occurring in the atmosphere, naturally occurring in your home, and creates hydroperoxides. This is going to be, when the customer asks or the homeowner asks, this is going to be very effective in knocking down all your bacteria, your viruses, your mold spores. It's also the way it increases filtration. This is going to be primarily a function of the ionization. It's going to cause all your dust particles to clump together, if you will, layman's terms, or agglomerate, and enable them to be caught better, more effectively in your pre-filter, in that MERV 8, in that MERV 10, or in this day and age, a MERV 13 filter that we're seeing out there. Easy to change out, quick release cell, and we have an enhanced catalyst with zinc as well. So show me state kind of thing right here. These are the performance graphs. And again, this goes back to IAQ 101. These are your microbials, number one. Number two is your odors and your particulates. Simple XY axis graph here. You can see after an exposure rate of time, the machine substantially reduces in the 90 percentile microbials, odors, and also is knocking down your particulate. And they do this with anything from VOC reading machines to lab tests, and also a particulate counter as well. So moving on, again, proactive air purification. This is the sneeze machine in the RGF lab. This is especially relevant in the age of COVID, especially if someone decides not to wear a mask and they sneeze on you. So we've been proven to kill a sneeze within 3 feet at a 99 percentile rate. This reduces the contamination from person to person, especially relevant with kids. For instance, I have a 3-year-old daughter, and I'm constantly telling her to cover her mouth when she sneezes. Again, I'm going to hammer this home just one more time, is on the proactive air purification side. You can see right here where I'm hovering my mouse, if that little girl is sneezing in an environment and she's infected with a virus, if you do not have a proactive form of air purification, you have to wait for that virus to go back up through the return, travel by the system. Hopefully it kills it if it's not moving too fast and or it isn't too far away. Now move on to REMI halo technology. You have PHI, which is in the occupied space, photohydroionization. It goes to work on it immediately on contact in the air and on surfaces. So it's a really big deal, especially in this day and age for COVID. So I'm going to transition here, RGF PHI technology with coronavirus. I'm going to share with you guys the study. We can send you this. This is also available on the RGF website. This is our case study that's been shown with the REMI halo PHI technology to inactivate a SARS-CoV-2 COVID virus by 99.9%. So you're going to see here it has a pretty quick kill rate. I'm not going to go into this in very much detail. I'll let you guys take a look at this and dig in yourself. The main thing I want to drive home here is The testing is relevant. And what I mean by relevant is it was tested in virtually over a 1,200 cubic foot area. So it was tested in a real world environment. A lot of the tests that you see out there, if you're an IAQ geek, if you will, like myself, you read further into these test studies, and it's like, well, wait a minute, this was done in a really small chamber. This doesn't make any sense. Or a second thing, if you read the small print, well, wait a minute, this was done on a surrogate of COVID-19. This wasn't tested on COVID-19. They said, well, this virus was worse than COVID-19, but it wasn't COVID-19. So the relevance and the real world teeth of these studies as they come out, I would look at very, very carefully. So again, going back to the virus mitigation, I'll just go back to there because this is important. Just to review, we can send you the study. We have studies that prove inactivization of 99.9% in a real world environment, being tested up to 1,200 square feet. This is just going to be a brief overview here. Mike will go into this in a little bit more detail. The thing I like to drive home here is RGF is a huge company. They are not a one-trick pony. They manufacture anything from commercial units up to 100,000 CFM to FDA 510K compliant air purification systems, positive, negative pressure rooms, and they also have equipment which monitors that as well. So obviously the talk of the town for good reason is COVID-19, but Remy Halo has been out for years. We've shown inactivization of airborne viruses, including H1N1, tuberculosis, MRSA, Listeria, norovirus, E. coli, Legionella, for years. This is nothing new to RGF or the indoor air quality world, and we have the testing data to provide on this. The testing data is available not only from RGF, but third-party sources, including KSU studies, Kansas State University. Studies follow the CDC guidelines, and this we will have to take out this portion of the slide. It has been tested on COVID-19 specifically. Things are kind of moving fast nowadays. I'm going to briefly go into the installation and service end of it right here. I've installed this on my own home. In my own home, it recesses into the supply side of the plenum downstream of the A coil. This is a good, better, best installation. This is the best place to install the Remy Halo because it distributes PHI into the occupied space. Common question I get here is, can it be installed downstream of the A coil? It can. It's not the ideal place to install this because you lose some of the PHI that's going to be taken out by the coil, so you'll keep your coil clean. You lose some of that PHI that goes into the occupied space. So we prefer that you put it on the downstream side. Again, 20 minutes, it's included with a 24-volt transformer. Remy Halo is a 24-volt unit, and it's recommended that you change out the cell every 2 years. It's simple. Again, I've done this myself in my own home. It's a 3-inch hole. You insert the Halo into the hole. You wire up your 24-volt transformer. These are your 24-volt wires right there. And it comes with a ground, 110, and also 208 as well on the transformer. Over-the-counter exchange, 5-year warranty on valves, 2 years on the cell replacement every 2 years. You can actually do the warranty online. This is our latest Remy Halo. This is the Halo LED. It's the industry's very first LED induct whole home air purification system. The main difference here, I'll go back to the unit itself, is that versus the standard Remy Halo, which again is a fantastic product, still a workhorse and one of our highest selling units. The difference here with the LED unit is that at the center of the unit, you have an LED catalyst, which is made to cycle on, cycle off versus a constant state UV. Also, the catalyst versus a shroud on the standard halo is a washable catalyst. This also has a bipolar cold plasma ionizer, but it's incorporated where I'm moving my mouse right here into the tip of the unit. So it still provides a high level of ionization, but it is self-cleaning. So this is a self-cleaning ionizer. Number 3 or 4 here, it is verified zero ozone emission. This is very important. So although the standard REMI Halo produces such low levels of ozone that it's really negligible, the Halo LED is approved for sale in California by an agency called CARB, the California Air Resource Board. If you know your IAQ, you know this is really no small feat. It's a very impressive product, really the best, in my opinion, in the indoor air quality world that we live in on HVAC. Right here, you have, right out of the gate, you have a 7-year limited warranty. You have a 4-year cell warranty as well, so it's very impressive on that side. So lastly, I'm about 30 minutes here. I'm going to show you guys the money side of this, answer any questions, and then transition into the commercial and biocontrols. So if you're like me, you like to see the bottom line really up front. Halos are installing from anywhere from $1,000 to $1,200 per year. If you're doing approximately 250 jobs at really a meager, a pretty poor close rate of only 10%, that's an additional revenue of $30,000 gross for one truck. If you're a company that has 10 trucks, this is a very reasonable number, and you get a little bit better at your sales presentation, honing your presentation and closing in the 15% range. That's 375 jobs per year. You're pushing the $500,000 mark. So that's something to really talk about. That's something to really dig your teeth into. Who can sell it? Really, it's really a salesperson's product, given the level of knowledge. This is, again, is my opinion, the level of knowledge that goes into selling it. So ideally, you want to have a salesperson telling the homeowner the features and benefits, but it is also something that the installer can upsell as they're installing the equipment, especially given that it's been proven to kill COVID-19, or your service tech upsell, asking the question, would you like to hear about a machine that kills COVID-19? It really, the conversation's over at that point. Of course they're going to want to hear about it. The packaging, again, really important. You see a lot of IAQ equipment that comes out in a plain brown box, and they're like, what is this? With this, it shows you what it is. It's labeled almost like when you get your iPad, similar to the Apple packaging that comes out. These are some additional products. We have a plug-in plus, which utilizes the same PHI technology, a self-contained unit. It also has a filter. This is going to be available in Q1 of 2021 and is also going to incorporate, we've added an onboard ionizer. This is the rapid recovery unit, the RRU-16. This incorporates, again, the same type of PHI technology. If you have an air duct cleaning business or installing HVAC, or you have an oil containment issue, I've used this on for oil companies. This will substantially mitigate that odor that you have. It was originally made for, I believe, Marriott hotels to mitigate smoking damage in rooms. We're happy to share this with you, and also our COVID testing, 18 validated tests, 99% kill rate. This is our dealer locator. I highly recommend signing up for the authorized dealer network to get the leads, get literature requests. You can also reach out to Northway marketers for sales literature such as this. This is great when you're in the home to get people thinking about indoor air quality. Not that you need too much push nowadays. Lastly, this is the private label program. It's a small MOQ of 20 units. Take this is an older slide. Take this lead time with a grain of salt. Lead times are changing daily given the pandemic. But the bottom line here is you can advertise your own company and your own point of contact on the unit itself. This is going to be the select contractor program that you can sign up with as you get on the dealer network as well. Highly recommend this. And this is going to be a quick recap. There's really no limitation right now, especially in this day and age of a need for the product, especially given the application and the testing data on COVID-19. But you can easily walk into any place from single family residential all the way down on restaurants that are trying to stay open, fitness centers, hospitals, any place that has people in it with conditioned air. There's so many applications, as I'm sure all of you know. And lastly, RGF makes a unit for all these applications. If it's a hotel PTAC, they have a PTAC unit. If, okay, I have a hydronic system, okay, we have a rapid recovery system or a plug-in system that doesn't rely on ductwork. But your bread and butter and our biggest seller is going to be really the REMI Halo. It's going to utilize all the technologies that we know to date, anything from main mechanism of action, photohydroionization. It's going to be a proactive form of air purification, but it also utilizes all the technologies that we know. So with that, I'm a little bit over, about 6 minutes over here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this over to Mike. I think for time's sake and to keep things going, I'm going to have Mike touch on the commercial indoor air quality and go from there. Mike, do you want me to make you the host?
Yeah. It doesn't matter. I mean, I could probably just tell you next slide.
Yeah, let's make you the host.
Okay.
Okay,
all right, good morning,
after...
everybody. My name is Mike Van Tine. I'm with Northway. I'm actually the Northway rep for upstate New York. I would say the majority of my career has been spent with commercial products, so I'm definitely familiar with the way commercial operates compared to residential. Next, I almost said next slide, but I'm the one that's in charge. It's not working. Can you do next slide? Oh, perfect. All right, so getting into commercial. Say we got a building owner or whatever, they're going to come to you, and Jim's already alluded to this, but they're going to say something like, I need some UV treatment. You know, the first thing that we need to figure out is if they're talking about the coils, which, you know, maybe 5% of the time they're talking about the coils, they might have an issue where the coils are, you know, getting gunked up and they want, you know, UV light on those coils. But most likely they're actually talking about, you know, this PHI technology, especially given, you know, what's going on right now. I mean, viruses and things like that, they're definitely on the forefront of everybody's mind. Next slide. All right, so in duct commercial, we've already talked about the top three here. You know, we got the Guardian that can go up to 18,000 CFM, and then the two Halos that can go up to 6,500. Now the bottom products here, these are labeled as pure commercial, and the one difference between the pure commercial and the Halos is that there's no ionization. You know, typically in commercial settings, you know, if we're talking offices or things like that, particulates, they're really not going to move the needle. You know, they're going to kind of slip through the cracks on that. And, you know, like I talked about last slide, it's the majority of the time where they need this air treatment, it's for viruses, you know, keeping that down. So ionization sometimes in the majority of commercial doesn't really come into play. So you will see that the commercial products lack the ionization. Next slide. Perfect. Yeah, this is a review as well. Sneeze test. The one thing, the main thing that you should take out of this is that this is an active system. Basically, what the sneeze test is replicating is we are introducing germs or viruses into a treated area, and within 3 feet of those viruses or 3 feet of that sneeze, which is that fast, we're killing 99% of those germs. This is this right here could be your main selling point. The fact that when we are introducing viruses and germs into a treated area, it's basically killing them on contact. Yep, next slide. A little bit more review. How do we do it? So the commercial is exactly the same as residential. We're using that PHI technology, and we're basically recreating the way that the outside air cleans the air, and we're bringing that inside. We got the UV source, the bulb instead of the sun, the catalyst instead of the air with the moisture and the metals, and we're creating those hydroperoxides. Also, anytime we're talking anything PHI cell, any type of PHI cell, that is a 2-year warranty, except for the LED, which is a 4-year warranty. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's what we're doing here. And I'm actually going to talk about these. Well, I won't actually talk about them yet. I'll talk about them next slide. So again, we're using the PHI. The same system that we're using on residential, we're using on commercial, but we're going higher CFMs. As you can see on that second to last bulletin, we can get up to 100,000 CFMs. That being said, if in a rare instance you come across an application that's that has higher CFMs than that, you can always run more than one, say, PKG unit or light commercial unit in conjunction with each other, again, in case you have something that's a higher CFM. These are all going to install right into the ductwork. Actually, the top one, that is completely non-invasive. It has magnets right on the bottom. You're going to put those right. They are designed for package units, but that being said, you can put them in other applications as well. And again, those are magnets. They're going right in there. You're not cutting any holes in the ductwork or anything like that, where you would be with the light commercial or the CLM unit. Next slide, please. Perfect. Here we go. So here, is our comparison table. You can see the Halo get us up to, what would you call that, about 22 tons. And then the Guardians, they're going to go a little bit higher. Those package units. Again, remember, if you have something that's going to go higher than this tonnage, and you really want to use the package units, you can rig up 2 at the same time and run those instead of having to go up to the light commercial or the CML series. I always screw that up. And again, those package units are completely non-invasive. You're not cutting anything. Yeah, you're not having to mess with the ductwork. Next slide, please. So here's the information that we're going to need from you. I'm not saying that you're not going to ask this, but this is what we're going to ask you. The size of the air handler and the type. Depending on the type, there are certain things that we can do. There are certain things that we probably can't do. Do we have access to the plenum? Type of space as well. Everything remaining equal, size, occupancy, things like that. For an office, I'm probably going to recommend PKG. For manufacturing, that's where we're probably going to get an ionization. Manufacturing, there's probably dust, things like that kicking up. That's definitely an issue that we want to address. Or, I know it's not on here, but a meat packing plant. I would double up the equipment going from an office to a meat packing plant, just because of the amount of organic compounds that are floating around in that meat packing plant that we want to make sure that we get taken care of. Next slide. Here's some standalone for commercial. Jim's already talked about the rapid recovery unit, PTAC unit. I'm pretty sure you can guess what those go to. Avid Air. These are little standalone ones. I would gear these towards locker rooms, bathrooms, things like that. They go right into the wall, recessed. The BOS systems, those are for dumpsters, trash chutes, things like that. Cap systems, those go up to 5,000 square feet. So an application on that, maybe you're in an office building where only one company in that entire building wants PHI, treatment. That's where the caps would work perfectly. And don't forget about the ice machine. I know Jim touched on that. And, if you're talking to a restaurant or whatever, it would definitely be worth it to mention that, because if a restaurant has an ice machine go down, that could be, I guess I wouldn't use the word catastrophic, but that's definitely going to have an effect. Next slide. All right, so I'm gonna get into biocontrols here. I know we're talking HVAC, but these opportunities could arise as well. Next slide. And next slide. So right here, these are your mobile HEPA air purification units. And go right in a patient room, waiting rooms, whatever. Because it's HEPA, we're getting down to 0.3 microns. If you can see the slide, we have two different products. The MAP 400 can do 200 square feet. The MAP 800 can do 400 square feet. They do come standard with a pre-filter and a HEPA. You can, or the customer can, upgrade to UV and active carbon, if they're worried about odors or anything like that. And of course, they are CDC and FDA compliant. If they weren't, we wouldn't even be talking about them. Next slide. So here's how the MAP works. The airflow, we're going to take that out of what they call the breathing zone, where the majority of the germs are. So we're going to go in on the top, and we're going to exhaust out the bottom. I don't think it talks about it on this slide, but there are kits available. If we need to make this an isolation room or a positive or negative pressure room, we can block off. Actually, I believe it's called block off kit. We can block off one of the exhausts and then run, some sort of flex duct or whatever out the other exhaust, and exhaust that into environment. One thing that we're going to need is the air changes per hour, which I'm going to talk about here at the end of the slide, how we achieve those, the ACH, and the table to see exactly where we're going to go. Next slide. All right, so the EXC7, this is more of a permanent isolation room. Again, we got the HEPA, so we're getting down to 0.3 microns. We are providing over 12 air changes per hour as required. The nice thing about these, and I don't remember the exact dimensions, but the dimensions do equal the same dimensions of the tiles in most hospitals. So you'll be able to just take the tile out, and because it does come with a variable speed blower itself, we are not having to tap in or modify the existing HVAC equipment to get this installed. And again, CDC and FDA compliant. Next slide. Here's your monitor, for the isolation room. That being said, this is compatible with other brands as well. So it's not just, it's only compatible with RGF products. You can do negative or positive. The nice thing, you do have visual and audible alarms, and it's you can either wall mount it or it is portable. Next slide. So the ISO port, sometimes hospitals or whatever, they need to just make an isolation booth, and we got you covered on that as well. Small sizes starting 4x4x7. Pretty much any application that any of your customers are going to need, we're going to be able to provide that size. Next slide. Finally, the air scrubber. This is not for infectious disease. This is for hospital construction. I mean, if there's people in the hospital, they're in the hospital for a reason, and we need to provide them with a solution to make sure that we're not getting dust and particulates kicked up in the air. One nice thing about this as well, if you can see the slide, down at the bottom of the Micron 600, there is a plate or whatever, or a cutout to put a halo in. So now you can increase the the air purification. Next slide. So how do we calculate those air changes per hour? We're gonna get the area, then we're gonna get the volume. Pretty much basic math. You can see the example down there. 10 feet by 20 feet is gonna give us 200 feet. Volume, 200 feet by 10 foot, which is, is the ceiling of the height. So we got 2,000 feet, which we're going to plug into the chart on the next slide. All right, so as you can see, room square feet, and then we need the air changes per hour. We can send this out to you if you do need it. It is probably available online as well. Next slide. So endless applications. We've talked mostly about ducted systems because, well, I mean, if we break it down, ducted systems are the most popular, but we also have applications for mini splits. We have applications for ducted, standalone systems. Pretty much any any application or any problem you come across in the field, RGF, we have a solution for. Next slide, please. Any questions?
All right, so that's going to wrap up our side of the presentation. Let me just make sure that everyone can hear me. Dan Skilton, can you hear me?
Absolutely, Jim.
Great. All right. Well, that's going to wrap up really light commercial, residential. Holman's has been nice enough to stock the Remy Halo and also the Remy Halo LED. You can email myself or Dan with any particular product questions that you have on technology, a copy of the COVID test. That's something that you'd like to see. And with that, you guys are a quiet bunch. There must be some kind of questions today. Does anyone have any questions? All right, well, I'll take that to mean that we did a very thorough presentation. We've answered all your questions.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Jim and Mike. Great job. If you guys have any questions, contact your local Holman's branch, your local TM, or myself. And again, guys, thank you very much. Have a good week. Stay safe.
Thanks again. Talk
Thank
to you
you.
soon. Bye-bye now.
Bye. Oh, I'm the one in charge.